Long ago, in a time when the gods walked among mortals, there lived a beautiful young woman named Persephone. Now, Persephone just so happened to be the daughter of Zeus, the supreme leader of the gods, and Demeter, the goddess of agriculture. And she was known throughout the land for her stunning beauty and grace. One day, Persephone decided to go pick some flowers with her friends in a nearby meadow. As they skipped through the tall grasses, she noticed a beautiful narcissus flower growing all alone at the edge of the field. So she walked over to it and bent down to pick it, only to feel the ground beneath her suddenly split open. Out of the crack came a golden chariot, pulled by 4 powerful black horses. And sitting in it was a stern-looking man with a long white beard. And though he was dressed in the finest robes, a jeweled crown, and carried a scepter, there was something about him that seemed dark and foreboding. Before Persephone could even scream, he reached out, grabbed her hand and pulled her into the chariot. Then, before she could even react, he had whipped the horses and they had vanished, plunging deep into the earth. And as they descended, Persephone noticed that the air grew colder and darker, and the beautiful meadow above them soon disappeared from view. They traveled deeper and deeper, until finally they arrived at a magnificent palace made of gold and precious jewels. And the man who had taken her here, whose name was Hades, god of the underworld, offered her his hand and introduced himself. He then showed her around the palace, explaining that he had taken her there to be his wife and queen. Myth. In some versions of the myth, it's said that Zeus had actually given Hades permission to do this, knowing that Demeter would never allow it. And though the wedding took place in secret, word eventually got out, and the other gods were informed. Only Hecate, the goddess of witchcraft, and Helios, the sun god, had actually witnessed the abduction, and they went to tell Demeter what had happened. But the goddess was inconsolable. She searched everywhere for her daughter, refusing to allow the earth to produce crops or cause any kind of growth. In her sorrow, she wandered the world, calling out Persephone's name, which caused the earth to wither and die. As time went on, the people began to suffer from famine, and many died from cold and hunger. And their cries eventually reached Zeus, who commanded Hades to release Persephone from the underworld. But Hades refused, claiming that she was now his wife and would not leave. And to make matters worse, Persephone had eaten some pomegranate seeds while she was there, and that bound her to the underworld for the next 3 years. Now, Zeus was very angry about this, but he knew that if he forced Hades to release her, the god of the underworld would simply take her back again. So instead, he made a deal with Hades, allowing Persephone to return to Earth for part of the year. But she would have to return to the underworld every winter. As the years passed, it was decided that she would spend about 1/3 to half of each year with her mother, the rest of the time in the underworld with her husband. And so it was that each spring, when Persephone returned to Earth, the flowers would bloom and the crops would grow, bringing warmth and plenty to the land. But each autumn, when she had to return to the underworld, Demeter would become so overcome with grief that she would cause the leaves to fall and the flowers to wither, bringing cold and death to the world until her daughter came back again the following year. And that, my friends, is why the seasons exist. But now it's time for you to make your voice heard. I ask you, which season is your favorite? I, for one, love the warm days of summer, but the crisp air of autumn is also quite enjoyable. Let me know your thoughts. And as always, thanks for watching.